G'day everyone, it's Jerry here from Succulent Fly Traps. You may have noticed in the last couple of months I've been very quiet on the social media scene. There's a good reason for that, and that's because I had to go through a hernia operation. I was quite shocked a couple of months ago, diagnosed with a hernia, but I've gone through the operation now and I'm well and truly on the mend. So everything's well and good. Having said that, I can't wait to get amongst my carnivorous plants here at my nursery. I can't wait to share my passion, knowledge and experience with you guys to help you grow healthy carnivorous plants at home. Having said that, it is now nearly the end of the growing season. Got a couple of more days left before the start of winter here in the Southern Hemisphere, here in Sydney, New South Wales. And as you may or may not know, temperate carnivorous plants basically stop growing in the winter period. Now there's a good reason for that, and that's because there are no insects to catch. There's no insects around in winter. So it doesn't make sense for a plant to spend vital energy producing leaves when there's no insects to catch. So they basically start to shut down around winter. And that's the reason why this plant isn't looking its best. Think of deciduous trees, for example, where the leaves start to go brown and eventually they start to fall off. This is pretty much doing the same thing right here. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you how I prepare my North American pitcher plants for the winter period ahead. And also in this video, I've discovered a couple of pests here on this plant. So I'm going to basically help you try to identify this pest if you do see it on your plant, and basically what to do about it, how to treat this pest. It's all about giving your carnivorous plant the best start in early spring. So let's have a closer look at this North American pitcher plant, which is preparing itself for winter dormancy. You can see here how the pitchers are well and truly browned off, they're crispy. This variety is called Sarracenia leucophila. The form is called red veins. It's got anything but red veins at the moment. As I said, it's quite normal because the plant here is preparing itself for winter, where it starts to shut down its growth. And that's why it's starting to die off with its leaves. Some of the pitchers here are brown all the way down to the rhizome. So the rhizome is this part down here. It's basically an underground branch. And that's where the roots are, and out of that branch comes these leaves. Some of the pitchers here, some of the leaves have got a lot of green coloration in there, even though they've got some brown tips. Regardless of whether they've got coloration in there or not, I'm still going to remove all these leaves. Now there is a bit of conjecture out there as to whether I should be removing the green leaves, but I've been doing this for many years and the plants don't suffer any ill effects at all. I suppose you could leave some on there if you want. Some of these green leaves, you could probably argue that they're probably gaining energy from the sun because they are green, but as I said, I've done this many times and no ill effects to the plant. Now, as I said, I like to remove all these leaves for the winter period. Now, not only does it look neater, but you also remove pests as well, which may be on the leaves. Now, talking about pests, I saw one over here. Here we go. Have a look at this. So this over here is called scale. Doesn't look like much. Looks like a pippy shell actually. But these are organisms which burrow into the leaves and they suck the sap from the plant. Now, one or two of these won't hurt the plant, but inevitably they will start to increase in numbers, and the more of them that you have on your plant, the more sap gets sucked out of the plant, and they can actually draw energy out of the plant, affecting it. So it's a good idea to be aware of these scale. Now what they do, they tend to form this outer shell. It's a hard shell, and underneath are those burrowing organisms. So yeah, that's why I like to remove all the leaves, because you do remove any pests which you may or may not see, such as these scale over here. So I'm just going to show you now how I actually remove these leaves. Okay, so all I'm going to do here, any of these brown leaves, I'll just take off by hand. Ones that are brown all the way to the end. If they don't come out by hand, you can just snip them off with your secateurs here. So just with your tips of your blades, just remove these leaves. Just try to remove that. And just moving along here. Going along here, just with the tips of your blades again, just remove those leaves around the base. This is a good example of how scale can conceal itself on the base of the leaves. So as you can see, I've really cut down this plant to size. After removing all these old pitches and leaves, all I'm left now is the tip of the rhizome. Now it's a good idea when you're doing this to use gloves. I like to sterilise the tips or the blades of the secateurs. I do that by spraying methylated spirits using this plastic spray bottle. Just spray it onto the blades and I just wipe it down with a rag. That just ensures that you're not spreading pathogens from plant to plant. It's also a good idea when you're doing this just to have a good look at the leaves themselves. It's easy just to cut those leaves off and just throw them away, but it really does give you a good opportunity to see how your plant fared during the growing season. And the best way to do that is just to look closely at those leaves. I've already shown you how scale looks like, so have a really good look at those leaves, particularly around the base of those leaves when you pull them from the rhizome, because as you saw earlier, scale does like to hide around the base of those leaves. So now I'm just going to show you what I do to treat that scale after I've removed all those leaves. So once I've removed all the leaves from the rhizomes, I then like to give the tip of the rhizome a nice spray of oil, an organic based oil. So the one I use this eco oil. I'm not getting paid to advertise their product, by the way, but I just mix the oil up with some water and I just basically put this oil into this plastic spray bottle, and then I just basically spray the tips of the rhizome with this oil, and that just ensures that if there are any of those scale in there, that oil will get rid of them. And because it's a systematic type of oil, it actually gets absorbed into the plant. Now that I've removed all those leaves, it's a good time to actually spray the plant. Now you can of course do this in the growing season, so in the middle of spring or late spring when the leaves are up. So again, do the same thing, just give the leaves a good spray of this. Now depending on how many scale are on the plant, you may have to do a repeat spraying, so all the instructions are on the actual package itself. But yeah, I have found this stuff to be pretty effective against scale, but of course it does help to to identify the scale early. So the earlier you do it, the better and easier they are going to be to control, rather than waiting until they do spread in numbers.